Hello everyone, it is Joe here from Omnipoke, the channel that brings you guys everything Pokemon. If you're looking for PTCGO codes, including the stuff from Chilling Reign, make sure you go ahead and check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your order using that code, Omnipoke. For today's video, we are looking at Leafeon VMAX. It's a really interesting card because it's an understated card. Ultimately, you're looking to do, an unstable amount of damage with the Leafeon, right? You're reliant on your opponent's retreat cost. There's question marks around Air Balloon. There's the reliance on the likes of Scrapper, Jammer, and Galar Mine to actually make the damage output work. But at its core, Leafeon is a pretty stable 2 energy attachment, 2 hit KO VMAX deck that has a couple of big points going for it. And that is that you have the Greening Cells ability for turn 1, where you can guarantee yourself an energy drop anywhere you want on the board. And you also have a colorless in your attack cost, which opens up capture energy to be a fantastic engine here to really add consistency to your deck. So I think these are the 2 selling points. I'm trying to compare this to something like a Victini, for example. And Victini has the capture energy synergy. It's a 2-hit KO VMAX style deck. It has the pressure of, bosses ordering up things a little bit more than Leafeon perhaps does. But the upside of Leafeon in comparison is that we have Greening Cells every single game so that we never fall behind on an attachment game plan, even if we are getting hit with 1-hit KOs via like weakness or via like a big Rayquaza knockout or an Alcremie knockout, one of those things. We should always have bounce back potential energy attachment wise. And that's something that I think is insane about Leafeon and really means that we have that sustainability even when we are going second. And at that same time, the fact that we are playing these Galar Mines and these Tool Jammers, we naturally cause headaches to decks that are always wanting to play the likes of Air Balloon and, over switches a lot of the time because Air Balloon grants more value in a lot of these situations. I know my Rayquaza deck is playing 3 Air Balloon, my Urshifu deck is playing a couple Air Balloons, all sorts of archetypes. I will be working in Air Balloon as my key tool for a lot of VMAX decks, and I think natural Galar Mine is going to really be annoying, especially with Tool Jammer as well. So the amount of outs that we have here could buy us a turn or two in a ton of different matchups, and I think that is not to be underrated about this card. When you're jamming someone with a Marnie, a Galar Mine, a Tool Jammer, they have to find some pretty specific outs to actually attack you in certain instances. So that 2-shot can get rewarded, even if we are just like gusting into something to try and buy a free turn. That actually pays off for us a good amount of time, and that's something that I think is being missed with Leafeon a few times when evaluating this card, because admittedly it's not a super glamorous card, but I think there's a lot to like about it. Now the list is very kooky here. We are going to be playing an Aurora based toolbox style deck, so don't panic when you see this next slide, which is our Pokemon slide. Because this is where all the creativity happens. This is where the magic happens. The rest of the list is pretty straightforward. And the reason why I am playing an Aurora Toolbox style list is I believe that this gives us the most well-rounded matchups in the field. And I think it gives us great selling points to the list, because Greening Cells is really just such a great enabler, in my opinion. This ability on turn 1, that guaranteed attachment, can open up the door to a ton of different attackers. The likes of Suicune, the likes of Umbreon VMAX as an attacking threat is really huge here, so do not sleep on that at all. Yes, we can just go all in on the Leafeon throughout the majority of the game, but then we have these other Pokemon that can come in and put a shift in. So let's start with that Leafeon V. Greening Cells is that ability. It allows you to search your deck for a grass, so it's a guaranteed attachment anywhere you want to end your turn. So think of it as an Intrepid Sword. You don't get those cards, but you get a guaranteed attachment, and it's wherever you want. So you can have 2 Leafeons, each with an energy powered up if you're going second, for example. So even if you get boss's orders, you still have a response attack the following turn. You can put it onto one of your tech Pokemon, like an Umbreon, because we are playing Auroras in here, to then threaten Shadow Rider VMAX. Suicune could be in here for the type coverage against the fire matchups, which is obviously very good. And it then also provides this other internal synergy going on with the deck, which is a mini Suicune package with a 1/1 Altaria in here. But we'll get back to that in a moment. The VMAX of Leafeon does that Grass Knot, a 60 times multiplier for your opponent's active Pokemon's retreat cost. There's a ton of 2 and 3 retreat VMAXs out there. So typically you're doing vanilla 120. That can be disrupted by the opponent with an Air Balloon. But we are playing Jammers and we are playing Galar Mines. So 120 is in air quotes the minimum, and then we scale upwards to around 240, which is really similar to Victini VMAX. I actually see a lot of parallels between those two sorts of decks going forward, and I do think there could easily be an Aurora Victini deck as well with a similar scope to this. So yeah, 2-2, Umbreon then comes in. It's a great card that you can capture energy out if you're going first. It is still a super threatening thing to do. Going first with a deck like this, where you can be threatening that turn 2 Darkness Signal, knocking out Sobbles even can be good for prize racing and denying engines of opponents' decks. But also, if you do find your Galar Mine, you can be threatening a one-hit KO on Evolving V Pokemon as well, which is very, very strong. And let's not forget that we can use our type coverage to our advantage here. So the Umbreon actually does come in and attack. You can turn 1, get your Umbreon down, attach to it, greening cells to it, and then by turn 2, you're threatening Dark Signal KO even on Shadow Rider VMAX Pokemon. So that's absolutely insane. We also play Raihan in here for additional burst acceleration. So there are easy ways for you to get into this Max Arc, to get into this Grass Knot, to get into the Blizzard Rondo from the Suicune as well. So these are all things to bear in mind. Playing one Galarian Zapdos, it's not only a 1 energy attachment to Pokemon in a lot of situations with so many V Pokemon in decks right now, but also it's obviously great type coverage against Eternatus. I feel like one copy should see you through that matchup as a big one-hit KO option. Then we just have regular like Grass Knot shenanigans and Dark Signal and that sort of thing. Even Suicune is very good in this matchup as another 2-prize attacking Pokemon because they naturally fill their board up. So I think we can go heavy into the 2-prize route in that regard. Then we do have 2 copies of Suicune. I think it improves our opening Pokemon sort of outs. We're happy starting any Leafeon. We're relatively okay starting Umbreon. The Swablu and the 2 Suicune increase our odds, so we're not always starting with Eldegoss and Crobat. But at the same time, this is a great way to give ourselves an extra draw here and there throughout the game, which is never a bad thing. But it then opens up the door to have an aggressive means of fighting against the fire matchups. The one thing I sort of dislike about Snowleaf Badge in this list is that I can still see myself losing to Victini, especially if you go second against it. And I don't really want to commit more than 2 spaces to a Snowleaf Badge because Tool Jammer is just so good in here anyway. So we've gone for a different approach where we're going to try and play a couple Water-type Pokemon to skew the weakness map in our favor that little bit more. We can just stay as a regular 2-prize V Pokemon in that matchup as Leafeon V, and then try and attack with the likes of Suicune, Zapdos, maybe even Umbreon if need be. So yeah, that's really nice. And obviously we can Grass Knot KO opposing Umbreon VMAXs with our type coverage as being Grass. So that's not to be slept on either. I actually think we have the type advantage in the Victini matchup now that we played double Suicune. So certainly something to bear in mind. Also, this can just be another card that can hit 220 if both boards are full. That's a good number to be hitting, especially into things like Zacian, which I think is quite awkward for Leafeon, even with the Galar Mine in play. Thanks to Resistance, you are not taking a one-hit KO. So a couple Suicune in here to put a shift in against Zacian is going to be important. Yes, they can be playing toughness capes and that sort of thing, but we are playing the jammers once again, so trying to weave those in with the Suicune is going to be important. Then we're playing the 1-1 Altaria. I don't really like playing 1-prize engines unless you're going thick with them. So either it's one of those things where you play like a 4-4 Cincino or a 4-4-3 Inteleon in whichever split you kind of want. But here I'm playing the 1-1 Altaria because we naturally play captures and we naturally are playing a really high incense count. We're playing 4 copies of incense here. And it just has such great synergy with Suicune. It allows us to cherry pick the right supporter for the right occasion. When Galar Mine isn't in play, this is a free retreat pivot as well, if need be. So just something nice to have in here. I feel like it grants you that just about enough value for a little bit of extra consistency in here, so we're not all in on just doing supporter draw throughout the entire game. Obviously, we can take a turn off using things like Boss's Orders with Dark Signal here and there, so you can get by just slamming the Researchers, slamming the Marnies, that sort of thing. But the Altaria gives us that little bit of extra control in the deck, that little bit of extra tutoring to find cards like Raihan on the right turn, which I think is a little bit of nice value here. You could up the count of Altaria if you really want to, but you'd be squeaking out spaces elsewhere, going to like a random 4-2 count of Leafeon, which I actually think is passable in this list, by the way. Or like cutting into maybe a Ball Search count that we'll see later. But yeah, I think 1-1 you get away with. It's not like a mandatory card to set up in every game, but you are playing so many capture energies, you have all those quick balls, you have 4 Incense, you can weave in the Altaria in a good number of games to get you that little bit of extra value, especially helping you like close out that game. We are playing an Eldegoss V in here as well. We play a variety of different supporters with lots of 2 counts actually in here. So Happy Match is a great way to close out games, be it via like a Raihan giving us the extra burst attachment or a Boss's Orders or whatever else. So yeah, a nice one-of include there. And a couple copies of Crobat in here for that dark asset. I think turn 1, it is vital to get your Greening Cells Leafeon down and even attached to your most optimal Pokemon, be it the Umbreon, the Suicune, whichever it is in whichever matchup. So having Crobat for the extra dig in those opening turns is obviously a crucial card to have. So really nice there overall. Onto the trainers then. All the creativity came in the Pokemon, so we are very, very simple with our trainer count. We are just playing 3 copies of Switch because you don't really want to play Balloons when we're playing Galar Mines ourselves, so we just want to have hard switches in here. It means we can get those extra cards from Suicune throughout the entire game, and of course it means our opponent can't stick us with things like Boss's Orders if we have our own switch outs. 4 Incense, 4 Quick Ball, just for the maximum search odds. We play 3 different evolutions in here if you count the 1/1 Altaria line, and you want to have really good outs to hit your VMAX on turn 2, so we can capitalize on that pressure, especially if we are threatening boss on 2 effectively with our Dark Signal. Couple jammers in here. Obviously, it's going to be important for shutting off Air Balloon, just that we're doing an amount of damage with Leafeon, but in general, it's additional outs to just hurt your opponent's switch outs in the opening turns, which is really nice to see. It also shuts off Toughness Cape, which I think is going to be pretty important when you're fighting against other 2-prize Pokemon. Like I said, Zacian is one of those ones I have in mind, certainly Zamazenta as well, with the Zapdos, the double Suicune, hopefully with the jammers in here as well. We can actually fight that fight against the Zamazenta fairly capably. And then we have the 4 Galar Mine to buff that Leafeon damage output and also disrupt the opponent with a small upside as well. Onto the supporters then, because we do play that Suicune engine and because we have Eldegoss, I feel comfortable playing a 2-2-2-2 and then 4 research line. Raihan is the one that I might need to describe here because it is the new supporter, of course. You can only play it when one of your Pokemon was knocked out on the previous turn, but it allows you to attach a basic energy from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. Then you can search your deck for any one card. And I think this is actually a crucial point to this Aurora-style box here. It's actually ironic how many times you will be using Raihan just to grab yourself the Aurora Energy itself and then using the burst acceleration of the Raihan for the Grass Energy attachment. So you attach that colorless energy to, support the Suicune, to support the Umbreon and actually get them swinging, and then you scout your deck to guarantee the Aurora that turn to turn attach onto those different sort of flavor of attackers that you can go for. So Raihan really makes a toolbox style deck like this gel that little bit more coherently and means that you're not, digging towards certain outs. The Raihan is a guarantee, which is really nice for us, and it's another way to, defend around Crushing Hammer, make sure that we keep a chain of attackers. I think in our set review, I actually undersold this card because I'm trying to work him into more decks than I thought as that sort of 1-2 count sweet spot, and I think he is going to serve a good purpose post-rotation. Couple Bird Keepers again, because we need to have additional manual switch outs when we can't just pay retreat with Galar Mine stopping us. So a couple Bird Keepers there. Obviously, it allows us to draw the extra card with Suicune in different instances, so it's effectively a draw 4, which is nice. 2 Marnies for hand disruption. Like I said, when you're jamming people, when you're Galar Mining people, that Marnie can be even more annoying. Couple Boss, we already have the couple Umbreon in here as well, so I feel the 2 count with the Eldegoss is fairly comfortable, especially with not a lot of discard in the deck, just the 4 research really, and your quick balls. So I feel like you can get away with the 2 boss count that little bit more in a list where we are playing, the backup of Altaria to scout it at the right turn and the backup of Umbreon. I feel like we should get away with it there, but research is still the creme de la creme at just dumping it all and seeing a fresh 7 options, especially when we're playing a deck like this. You don't want to miss that turn 2 VMAX, etc. To really get rolling. Onto the energy then, another big selling point of the deck, as I mentioned. You get to play 4 captures. That is nutty. We have a 1 colorless attack cost in all of these attackers at least. So that's fantastic. The Auroras pitch in and put a huge shift in for that type coverage game that we are trying to play. And the 4 grass, as long as you haven't prized all 4 and drawn all of them in the opening turn, you can get that Greening Cells, get that free attachment, and that's really what sets you up on your way. And I think when you have 12 physical energy in the deck as well, you won't be missing your turn 1 attachment all that much either. I'm really, really sold on capture post-rotation. It may lead to something like Fan of Waves becoming a more popular card in the format, which we will have to monitor. But right now, I really like playing lists that just go very simplistic, and the capture energies just give you those additional outs to make sure that you're hitting your key attackers, you get that greening cells into play, and you get rolling. So that's going to be a really huge deal, I think, for this deck. So pause now for the full list. It's always in the description as well, but let's move on to some tech options. There certainly have been a few things that I've been scratching my head over for this list, because obviously there's the initial list of Leafeon, which is just like pure Leafeon, and that's much easier to build, but an Aurora approach is much more kooky, and there are a lot more options out there. A Ditto V could be really nice for being that like additional Suicune or that second Zapdos, that sort of thing in key matchups. It can even transform into an Umbreon, which is a very scary prospect as well. So this is a nice card that, again, could sort of be the glue towards the deck. I felt like having a second Suicune is just being a better a better early game card to have, rather than a physical Ditto, but you could go for that 1-1-1 split of the Zapdos, Suicune, and Ditto. It would open up the door for extra potential Umbreon plays, which is kind of cool. Vikavolt is also an interesting one, surprisingly, but because we're naturally playing 4 Galar Mines, and we play Umbreon and Boss, there's actually a good amount of opportunities for you to just, like, slow the game down and buy back some turns here just by going, right, I'll stick Galar Mine, I'll Umbreon you up, I'll just start Paralyzed Bolting and let me re-establish my board, re-establish my hand, that sort of thing, and just give me some more damage here to play around with. So the Vikavolt is actually an interesting card for an Aurora box like this, and it's something I need to explore that a little bit more. I haven't put enough testing into this Vikavolt to really feel like it's okay, but I think the natural synergies that we have in the list could open the door to a card like this. Cinccino could end up in this list, and I feel like the straight Leafeon build probably will play something like Cinccino or Inteleon, whichever one you prefer. The Cinccino opens up more space for you, which is why I'm inclined to sort of play that in what is more likely going to be a straightforward build. But right now, I feel like I can't commit many spaces to Cinccino, and having like a 1-1 or a 2-2 make-do line without level ball doesn't feel as good value as just a 1-1 Altaria would do. For some other cards, I mentioned why I don't like Snowleaf Badge so much in this list, because we're already fighting the weakness game in other areas, but it could be nice. Escape Rope is also pretty cool for additional switch outs, but also pushing things to the bench as well. Like I said, with Galar Mine established and people not able to air balloon their way out of sticky situations, sometimes a rope just buys you free turns because they've commit their energies onto their main attacker. You play that rope, they have to throw something into the active, and even if you're not knocking it out, you can easily two-shot through the guy because they just have to pass back into you unless they can like Drizzle for a Bird Keeper or something to get out of a bad situation. So the rope could also be similar to the Umbreon, similar to the boss, a great way for you to like just two-shot through something that your opponent forces into that active position. So yeah, that could be pretty cool. Rotom Phone actually has synergy with Suicune, and I think if I was to play a higher Suicune count, I might even consider this over the Altaria. It's one of these cards that really hasn't done much in the format right now. But I am pretty paranoid about turn ones. I feel like it's super important. Like, going first, you want to have additional outs just to make sure that your plan A is going first, is like all going well. But also going second, you're at a big disadvantage in this format. So I feel like Rotom Phones and having like ideal turn one, ideal turn twos as the player going second is pretty much the only way that you can come back into certain games. And a Rotom Phone could help stitch that together. I'm just not super convinced, especially with the amount of spaces I want to play. Like, do you end up playing 2 Rotom Phones like every now and then it comes off, or I'm not really too sure. And then Zinnia's Resolve, just because we're playing the Altaria package, it could end up being a one-of in this list as well, just to dig deeper into the deck and grow a hand size rather than just pitching everything and starting again from a fresh 7. Onto the matchup overview then. I've surprisingly put everything pretty close. I think with the toolbox, that is the nature of this type of deck. If you're getting the right types out in the right situations, you can put yourself in a decent spot. Even things that we don't hit for weakness, the likes of Rapid Strike Urshifu, the likes of Ice Rider Calyrex VMAX, we're hoping that things like Galar Mine and Tool Jammer slow these decks down. We know how important it is for Urshifu to come in and out of the active for their early Gale Thrust plays and that sort of thing. We know that it can be annoying as well for the Calyrex if they're going to lean heavier into a Suicune engine. They're more than likely also going to be playing air balloons on their side, so shutting those off can buy you turns. I think although that will be the case for Zacian decks as well, I think Zacian will be playing Bird Keeper naturally, and I think just the raw hit points and the resistance is going to be too much for us. If they can play around Suicune's damage output by not overbenching, I think ultimately that should be the worst matchup I can possibly think of. Like I said, Victini, we can actually hit for both of those weaknesses. We can knock out Umbreons with our Leafeons, we can knock out Victinis with our Suicunes. Eternatus should be pretty okay. Shadow Rider should be pretty okay. We have enough answers to Glaceon. Potentially, it's just whether we can get them out quickly enough. and Rayquaza as well. We're going to try and disrupt with those Jammers and Galar Mines. I think it's very annoying for the likes of Rayquaza that needs to constantly be jumping in and out of that active position. We really will put a strain on those sorts of lists. So yeah, I think ultimately Leafeon is going to be a solid deck. Do not sleep on the headache that is the Galar Mines and the Tool Jammers. I really think it's a real huge problem. And I could foresee more disruptive Leafeon builds that are basically taking away the Aurora fun stuff and going more towards, you know, crushing hammers, fan of waves, these sorts of cards, and just saying, I am a pure Leafeon deck. This card is good enough on its own. If I can buy myself a turn here and there via hook or crook with the stadium, the tool jammers, the hammers coming in, or whatever else, you will buy a turn here or there. And that's what makes Leafeon pretty dangerous. The other thing that I would say is that I am sold by Greening Cells. That ability is crazy, crazy good. And even if you don't like the VMAX, the Leafeon V itself is bananas. That card is worth building around for sure, and that's why I'm certainly going to be having a go with this build and a few other wacky ones out there as well. So this may not be the only Leafeon VMAX deck, but this may not have been the one that you're expecting to see first either. I've been getting really creative with this sort of card because I think there's just so much here to unravel and make the most out of it, because I feel like this could be one of the 50-50 decks of the format, if built in a toolboxy kind of way, or even built in a disruption kind of way, where you're just trying to buy back turns and shrug. In a format where there aren't many comeback mechanics, having these sorts of cards that just naturally slow people down, hurt their outs, and make them have things off of just like 4-card Marnies, yeah, I can see it being a win condition. So let me know your thoughts down below of Leafeon. Did you ever think about having a AuroraBox approach? I know there have been a few Japanese Aurora builds out there. They've played it with Moltres, they've played it with Victini VMAX. Obviously, we're talking about a different format where they still have VMAXs and a few other things, but I feel like it can be transferred over, and I feel like the Leafeon is this card that I'm just really enamored by. I really am a fan of it, and I can see it succeeding in one way or another. So let me know your thoughts down below. I hope you did enjoy today's video, and I'll be back tomorrow with another one. So yeah, cheers.